most of us would agree that teaching is a very noble profession, and anyone who chooses to be a teacher actually embodies almost limitless potential to mold, influence, shape the character of a learner or a student much, much beyond only delivering the subject that person is tasked with teaching. My guest today, I suspect, felt that she had an even higher purpose and calling because after being a teacher for a number of years, she continued on a path and a journey to explore herself, to understand the world around her, to evolve, to remain open to gaining knowledge, insight, and finally sort of came to a place and a space where, having reached a certain place herself, kind of dedicated herself to then serving as a lighthouse to many, many more people, whom she has been supporting and helping navigate life through some of their own challenges and coming to a deeper understanding of the world around them and of who they are. So we are calling this particular episode of Talk Therapy Scripting a New Paradigm Inside Out. And joining us is learning experience architect Swarleen. I came across her quite by chance, was very, very inspired by the work she was doing, what she was saying. I reached out to her, and very generously, I might add, she was receptive, open, and agreed to be in conversation with us. I'm extremely grateful for her time, and I would like to welcome her. So, welcome, Swarleen.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the lovely introduction. Couldn't have been better.
Swarleen, like I mentioned, you have been through a very kind of profound journey on your own and of your own. Um, Along the way, I think it's fair to say that quite a few conventions were challenged. Whenever there are established and set status quos, whether they've come about by certain communities or families, the way society is constructed. Particularly, I find when a woman is kind of questioning them consciously or inadvertently through the process of her own evolution, it always kind of solicits not not the kindest responses and reactions. I'm going to ask you quite bluntly. Uh, there must have been phases where you didn't have it easy from detractors, naysayers. How did you navigate those situations? How did you manage to keep yourself on that path of evolution and not succumb, not stop?
Thank you. A question which is very close to heart. I think, Karthik, everyone, I'm not here talking or I'm not being gender biased. I believe everyone who grows, they change the ecosystem around them. And yes, it isn't an easy path. It takes a lot of courage. It takes that, that acceptability to inner self that, yes, I'm ready for it. When you prepared inside. And I don't think that success has come all the way from having all the answers
Hmm.
or just, being in that state of what if and living in that thinking of kya kahenge log. It is not easy. Certainly, it is not. It has come from staying aware that life is constantly changing. And I held by three principles. I think that which guided me all through, and they still do that. The very first was awareness. Every stage of my life that I have passed through till now, it demanded a different version of me completely. And I had to recognize when my old way of thinking was no longer serving my future. The second one was adaptability. So many people I see here, many of us, we confuse adaptability with compromise. We don't even understand the difference. I don't. Adaptability is, for me, learning new skills while still remaining rooted in our values. I don't say that being traditional is harmful. I don't believe traditions are orthodox. There are lots of traditions that inculcate those values in us. Whether I moved from teaching into leadership, entrepreneurship, or international education, I was willing to become a beginner again.
Hmm.
There were roadblocks. There were, of course, the comments. Of course, there were a lot of negative remarks, and there were pushes which wanted to hold the ship from sailing. But I think when you've settled it in your mind, when you've inhibited those conditions in your own inner self, that doesn't become difficult. And I've been saying this very loud. When I say it is your passion, may not give you that kind of a vibe. But in Hindi, when you say na, when it becomes your junoon, nobody can stop it. The very third approach or a principle that I have been following all throughout is the holistic approach. And I stopped seeing career, family, health, personal growth as separate boxes altogether. For me, whether one area, whatever I pick up, when this improves, every other area benefits. I've also learned during these days, and coming back to the question from where you started, growth is uncomfortable. You have to break a lot of bias. You have to challenge the status. It is not easy, as I mentioned, but it is not impossible.
You
You
know,
just have to, yeah, yeah, please go ahead.
please go ahead.
So I think every time you challenge a convention, especially maybe as a woman, you will invite resistance. But criticism isn't always a sign you're wrong.
Hmm.
Sometimes you are moving ahead of the familiar thinking. So today I don't ask myself this question, is this difficult? Or Swarleen, are you going to do it or not? I just ask myself, is this helping me become a person who I want to be? And if it's a yes, I have a very, very strong sense that believe your intuition, believe your gut. It will never lie to you. And when this yes comes from inside, follow the way.
You
I think
know,
that
the three kind of pillars that you've put forth and explained very beautifully make perfect sense to me logically. They seem like very, very, legitimate, dependable kind of pillars upon which to lean on to navigate this kind of thing. But forgive me, I'm going to sound like a stuck record like Karan Thapar because and I often use this example in the therapeutic realm where because a lot of all of psychological theory, let's say, was developed in the Western world, keeping a very Western audience and culture in mind, there are certain suggestions or tools that aren't easily applicable in our cultural context. For example, one I love citing the example of is you can't really tell somebody very casually in India, go make boundaries, for instance. It may be, I know I'm generalizing, but I think it's fair to say that it'll be a lot easier to do in the Western world than it will be here. Now, I want to come specifically to the marital construct. And when one is married, and we understand that the tragic reality is that most married women are constantly straddled with mom guilt, partner guilt, bahu guilt, this guilt, that hajar guilt is there. So, when you are, or when one is in this state of evolution where presumably it could be seen as, certain duties and obligations are being compromised in the wake of those pursuits, what happens then?
Yeah, I think every woman has to face this. So when I was telling about the journey when I started believing in myself, and I'll take it from there only. Naturally, some traditional expectations were questioned. Initially, not everyone understands the change because people become very comfortable with a version of you that serves their expectations. I realized that if I wanted that respect, I first had to respect my own aspirations. Over time, of course, my family also witnessed that my growth wasn't taking me away from them. In fact, it was only adding value to everyone around me.
Yeah, yeah.
My children learned that ambition and kindness they coexist. My relationships became healthier because they were based on mutual respect rather than me doing a silent sacrifice, which I see many women have to do. I also went through that phase where I had, so, Karthik, sometimes I realized what wrong I was doing in the initial years was I was trying to explain it to them. Or maybe
Hmm.
I was somewhere doing an over explanation, or I was trying to tell them that, I can do it. I was trying to prove my mettle to them first and to myself later. But when I changed the entire concept of first believing in me, doing the entire study myself first, believing in my thoughts and telling myself that this belief can exist, I think that's where the entire quotient of the family, of the friends, of the people who love you the most start changing. And sometimes what I also realize, these fears were not only negative aspects of being feared or afraid of what if she becomes. Those were very heavily tied up with being too much of caring, too much of being possessive. What if somebody harms her? What if she fails? What if she's not able to make it? Or being protective by saying that, I can't listen anything about her. So what if the society tells her I have to? So I saw that too much in my husband. He wanted to
Hmm.
protect me from all the so where that dispute started to happen was he was right in his perspective. I cannot say he was wrong. He was protecting me from the external societal pressures, from anybody say doing or saying something for me which he would not like. And I was here quite hell bent on that, no, 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 that's not happening. What struck the chord the best was to be balanced. Rather than coming on the social media all of a sudden that, yeah, 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 this is our life, this is our life, this is our. We first tried to soak in,
Hmm.
assimilate, and try to do it first before coming to the world. When we were pretty much assured, we said and we realized it's high time. We know we can do it. And that's where I say that, from a dispute, it became a mutual respect. One of my biggest learning is that boundaries are not walls. Be it your parents, they always wish the best for you. Again, they are being overprotective, they are being concerned. Because when you start thinking that boundaries, they're not walls, They are just the bridges towards the healthier relationships. It starts to work the way you want. You say, you manifest. Why don't you manifest this? I can make it. Today, I can honestly say that becoming my authentic self has made me a better professional, a better mother, a better wife, a better daughter, and a better human being. Now, when my children tell me, come on, mom, you can do this, we know, you know, that's the win. That's the success for me. And I think breaking those shackles is here. When you believe that, all these self-limiting beliefs, they they kind of crush you. But one thing also I realized, which is very important, open communication. Sometimes, and I've seen that, I've worked with a lot of women out there. I've seen them, no, 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 I don't want to tell this to him, or I don't want to show it to my parents. I just want to go on. Don't do that. In that, you're crushing it. Be who you are. That authentic self has to come out before anything else. That's my very strong belief.
So, obviously, you've said lots of significant things. A couple of them really jump out at me. One, of course, connects beautifully with what you actually started by saying, which is that you don't, and perhaps I don't, and perhaps we shouldn't view life necessarily in compartments. And naturally, when you are undergoing a process of evolution, or you're coming to a better understanding, that better understanding will permeate every facet of your life. So that is very important. So, although there may be initial hesitation or reluctance, once you do kind of come upon that wisdom, everybody around you will kind of benefit from it and revel in it.
Absolutely.
The other thing is that, and that's a very significant point. In fact, I never looked at it that way, but because I'm a parent to, and a fairly paranoid parent, I must confess, to my 9-year-old daughter, um, there's that there's always that instinct that you don't want to your children to make certain mistakes. You want to prevent them, but and despite knowing theoretically that it's probably better for them if they go through their own mistakes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's true.
um at what point did it kind of did this entire ethos that you were coming into and developing for yourself uh, become something that you wanted to kind of spread, proliferate to the larger public, to kind of put it into action and practice and make it a purpose?
I think it had dawned upon me pretty earlier. Um, yes, I did prolong it for some time. Again, as you just mentioned, that we parents are afraid that our children don't fall. I also had that in mind, and I wanted them to grow up, at least be manageable on their own, and then walk into the next shoe. Surprisingly, when I started as a PGT English, I had loads of communication. The best part of being a PGT English at any school level is that you have your students as your friends. Because be it any event, the English department has to be there on the stage.
True.
So my student committee was always eager, enthusiastic to be participating. And one day, my 12thies, they were just having a discussion and we were having a chit chat. And I was giving them those life answers. You know how these 12thies start to think from a campus point of view to going to a college or a university. And one of my student, her name is Simran, she tells me, Ma'am, why don't you become a counselor to students like us? I mean, anybody can teach English to us. But the way you guide us, the way you mentor us, I think this is what, makes us just connected to you. that's where, that inward thinking started to take the shape from that day. And I started to realize that yes, beyond books, I was absolutely myself with my students. And then I left my job to get into a coaching career, thankfully, because I think that was a call. From the beginning, I had done my certifications, and I thought that, now is the time. And that's where when I talk about adaptability, I started growing and getting deep into myself. The very first thing that I uh, focused was again on emotional intelligence, because that's where the awareness rises to the maximum. And then gradually it started coming out with the sessions that I was doing, the podcasts I was doing. The first break where people knew that I was there was my first TEDx, which happened coincidentally. I did a webinar in the COVID times with one of the colleagues from IIT, and there was a TEDx happening where he'd nominated my name. And when my first TEDx came out, I saw people pretty much surprised that, oh, when did this approach start to happen? And that's where a lot of questions, a lot of changes in life. And that's where it made me. So, my first TEDx, I still remember, was on believing yourself. And I talked about a very unique quotient, which is the unique quotient. A uniqueness quotient, I called it UQ, which everyone has, but rarely people work on it. We talk a lot about EQ, IQ, SQ, but we don't talk about something unique that everyone has. And that's where I started talking much more about this in my sessions. I started working with two or three NGOs. And that's where people got to know she had something more to what she was doing till now. So by and large, they started looking at me as a coach. Lot of inhibitions, of course. But I think by that time, I had grown strong enough inside to let the world know where I was destined to be. So I took a lot of there comes a question when I do my interviews that we see a lot of change in trajectory, the path that you have been moving. I love it. I love moving because I love learning. And from being a teacher to a soft skills trainer to getting into a leadership coach and then opening up my own entrepreneur,
Venture.
entrepreneurial venture. And then that's how I got my another job. I was pretty much tied up with my thing. And then they said, oh, why don't you mentor the entrepreneurs? That's how I started working with the, universities. And the trajectory still is not the same. It is still developing. There is so much to it. So when I told my children that, I think it's high time I should do an AI course, I said, kuch to chhod do yaar. I said, no, I want to do it. So I think now the people who once used to tell my husband, yaar, how can she be so much on the social medias and everything? I think their mouths are shut, gladly and very openly saying that. They know she says what she means. So I think I've gotten into that credibility where now what I say, people know that she means it.
Yeah,
It's
it
not,
carries weight, it carries
it
value, it
carries
carries
weight.
authenticity.
Yes, it carries a lot of weightage. It carries a lot of credibility. Again, I would emphasize the path wasn't easy. There were
Absolutely. No, but
period.
if you allow me a minute for a quick aside, because I'm a very passionate educator and teacher, but I've always maintained, for me personally, I don't want to speak on behalf of anybody else. I don't teach because it's selfless or anything. In fact, it's deeply selfish because just as you mentioned, this wonderful student of yours who acted as such a critical catalyst in your journey, you know what happens with students whom one is able to engage at a very real level as a mentor or a teacher is that they also look at you in a very unfiltered way, perhaps a much more objective light than your own family etc is able to, because they don't come with any baggage. And so that relationship is very much give and take. One I learn constantly from my students, immensely, probably more than they do from me. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think, and Karthik, you'll agree with me, this is the biggest reward. It's not about the professional recognition now. Of course, awards are wonderful, promotions are encouraging, but the greatest reward is influence. And now, when I look back to the people who talked, to those same people who come back for advice, you know where you stand. And that's where you know the change that you brought in is exactly what you'd looked for.
Absolutely. And speaking of change, that's a wonderful way for us to kind of close and tie up this lovely conversation very neatly. That, we've spoken about how family and near and dear ones can get ruffled, especially at the beginning. But at a certain stage, in your case, what are some very tangible positive changes that you've seen amongst people who are close to you by consequence of your own evolution?
I think a lot of friends out there,
Hmm.
when I see them, every time telling me, don't stop here. You're living not your dream, but our dream. You know that universality that it gives
Hmm.
at that point in time is they'll tell me, don't stop. And it just comes so straight. And now I see many of them. At least if I can't go out for work, I can do something from home. All right, if I can't work, I can still study. I can still do something at least of my own. And yes, the belief system of many of my ex students, to my colleagues, to one of my very dear friend who almost comes up and tells me, I think every second, third day, I receive a message from her, which is like, I don't say that I am inspiring her, she inspires me. That, I saw that reel the other day you'd sent me. I think that's the best thing I could do for myself. And
Hmm.
thank you for lighting up that. I mean, my role is just maybe send a reel to her, send a light message to her in the early morning,
Yep. Yep.
or maybe just tell her, all right, I'm going for a nice meditation session. You're coming along. So I'm not seeking her permission. Are you coming along? I say, are you coming along? I've done the ticket. So I think that kind of a change. Of course, my family. When I see my husband telling me, "Oh, come on, go grab your dreams. It's your time now," or my husband telling me that you are not after titles. We know you. It's about the increasing impact that you are more concerned with. I think that kind of change to my parents who very proudly keep on sending my stuff to their friends. This is what our daughter is doing. I think that's the moment which lights up,
Hmm.
which makes me think that there's still more to do. And
I
let's
hear
just
I
say,
hear what you're saying. In fact, if I was to kind of, try to distill it, really speaking, at the end of the day, if there is a set of people for whom one has been able to create a feeling that, hey, this is a possibility for me, just in the same way that, I don't know, the first African American who got an Oscar did, or the first brown person who, got a Grammy Award did, and those pathways open, and that those possibilities open and that belief is instilled, I think that's really what it's all about. And that is really what, I mean, if we were to define inspiration, that's what it is, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you know what? There are still days, and I still remember, Shylock's speech, do we not bleed? We bleed. Being a coach doesn't mean we do not have that resistance. We do not encounter that resistance. It sometimes comes within us.
Sure.
Of course, it does, because it will always keep on hitting back. But then I ask myself three questions to sum it up very quickly, Karthik. First, what is the situation teaching me? Second, what skill or what skill do I need to develop to
Mm,
turn this off?
mm,
And third, how can I turn this challenge into an opportunity?
mm.
And that mindset shifts everything.
Yeah.
Because one thing I've learned is leadership isn't about knowing everything, it's about willing to keep learning. And I think that mantra in my life, which I wrote in my book also very clearly, desire, dedication, and determination are the chapters of the life book called Success.
In fact, the three kind of steps that you just mentioned are, in a sense, to me, the formula to convert the glass half empty to the glass half full.
Absolutely. That it's patterns don't disappear automatically. They disappear intentionally.
Mm,
Many
mm.
beliefs are inherited, not examined, whether it is
Absolutely.
gender roles, parenting styles, career choices, definitions of success. We often continue those patterns simply because this is how it has always been.
Of course, that's our not even normal. That's what we know.
Huh. But I think education, I talk about the holistic education, it teaches us not only what to think, but how to think.
Yeah. And what to
Breaking,
question.
yeah, of course. So breaking that generational conditioning doesn't mean rejecting our culture or traditions, as I earlier mentioned. It means preserving what empowers us, courageously questioning what limits us.
Yeah.
And I believe every generation has that responsibility to leave behind a very healthy belief that the ones it inherited. And that's how I think societies evolve.
Absolutely. I mean, this can go on and on.
Yeah,
Sometimes it just feels even a little bit unfortunate that we even call it conflict, because it really isn't. It's a natural evolution of every generation, and it's like the operating system needs an update.
absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
there is really no conflict. Well, it's been a fascinating interaction. I didn't think it would be otherwise. All the best in all of your endeavors, and may you continue to evolve and light up the paths to many, many others. And please remain your radiant self. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Karthik. It was amazing.